The silence in the sanctuary's emergency room was suffocating. Veterinarian Camila Ferreira held in her hands a premature dachshund puppy that weighed no more than 150 grams. Its little eyes were still closed, its tiny body trembling in weak spasms. The mother had rejected the smallest of the litter 3 hours earlier, and now every second counted. The heart monitor emitted irregular beeps, each pause between them longer than the last. Body temperature dropping, Camila murmured, wrapping the puppy in thermal blankets. But she knew the cruel truth. Without constant maternal warmth, without proper stimulation, that small being would not make it through the night. The Refugio das Montañas sanctuary, in the interior of California, had no neonatal incubator available. The equipment had been broken for weeks, waiting for parts that never arrived. On the other side of the complex, separated by only 2 corridors and a reinforced glass door, lived Titan, a 190-kilogram silverback gorilla, with silvered backs that gleamed under the afternoon sun. But Titan was not known for his physical imposing presence. Since arriving at the sanctuary after being rescued from an illegal circus, he had shown something rare, a disconcerting sensitivity to perceive the suffering of others. That afternoon, Titan abandoned his meal. He stood still by the wall that separated his enclosure from the veterinary clinic, his enormous hands resting on the concrete, his head tilted as if listening to something no one else could hear. Caretaker Roberto Chun had been observing that behavior for 20 minutes, intrigued. Titan had never done this before. Inside the clinic, the monitor emitted a continuous signal. The puppy's heart had stopped. Camila began cardiac massage with 2 fingers, pressing the tiny chest with desperate delicacy. Once. Twice. 3 times. On the 10th compression, the beep returned, weak but present. She looked toward the window, toward the mountains in the background, and an impossible idea crossed her mind. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment saying what you thought and which city or country you are watching from. Camila's proposal was met with absolute silence in the meeting room. Putting a premature defenseless dachshund puppy into the hands of a 190-kilogram gorilla? The administrative director, Patricia Souza, shook her head in denial even before Camila finished explaining. This goes against all animal safety protocols, Patricia said, flipping through regulations. One wrong move and the puppy is crushed to death. Do you understand the legal responsibility of this? Roberto Chun, Titan's caretaker for 7 years, remained silent. He knew that gorilla better than anyone at the sanctuary. He had seen Titan cry while watching injured birds. He had witnessed when the animal gently returned a baby raccoon that had fallen into his enclosure, placing it by the fence so the caretakers could rescue it. But this was different. This defied all logic. The puppy has 2 hours of life at most, Camila broke the silence. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with conviction. We don't have an incubator. We don't have a surrogate mother. And I saw Titan react to this animal's suffering. He felt it. As if he knew. Patricia clenched her fists. The sanctuary was already facing financial problems. A fatal accident would be the end of everything. But there was something in Camila's eyes that made her hesitate. That veterinarian had never proposed something so radical in 5 years of work. 15 minutes, Patricia finally gave in. Supervised. Cameras on. At the first sign of danger, we removed the puppy from there. At 1843, Roberto opened the door to Titan's enclosure carrying a thermal box. The gorilla was sitting in the corner, waiting. His amber eyes fixed on the box with a disturbing intensity, as if he knew exactly what was inside. Roberto knelt down, slowly opened the lid. The dachshund puppy, wrapped in a pink blanket, emitted almost inaudible whimpers. Titan extended his hand. Not abruptly or curiously. He extended it with the palm facing up, fingers slightly curved, in a gesture that seemed like an invitation. A silent request. Roberto looked at the camera, at Camila on the other side of the glass, and then did something that would change everything. Roberto placed the puppy into Titan's palm with trembling hands. What happened in the following seconds challenged everything behavioral science knew about primates. Titan lifted the puppy up to chest height, observing the tiny being with absolute concentration. Then, with calculated movements, he pressed the dachshund against the warm fur of his chest. The puppy stopped trembling. Camila, on the other side of the glass, felt tears stream down uncontrollably. The The portable monitor showed the animal's body temperature rising for the first time in hours. Titan adjusted the pink blanket with his index finger, covering the exposed little paws. Each gesture was measured, conscious, almost human in its tenderness. "He's warming the puppy," Roberto whispered to the camera. "Like a mother would." Patricia watched in silence, her face pale. This should not have worked. Gorillas did not have parental instincts for other species. Not like this. Not with such deliberate precision. But Titan was not finished. When the puppy emitted a weak whimper of hunger, the gorilla looked directly at Roberto. He raised his free hand and pointed to his own mouth, then to the puppy. The meaning was crystal clear, that baby needed to eat. Roberto ran out to fetch the special milk formula. He returned 4 minutes later with an adapted syringe. He showed Titan how to feed, demonstrating the correct angle. The gorilla watched with absolute attention, then took the syringe delicately between thumb and index finger. He positioned the tip at the puppy's lips and pressed slowly, pausing when the animal swallowed. "This is impossible," Patricia murmured. "He is learning neonatal care in real time." For the next 2 hours, Titan did not move. He remained seated, the puppy warmed against his chest, feeding it every 30 minutes when the whimpers began again. Roberto documented everything, but his mind could not fully process what he was witnessing. Then, at 2100 hours, something happened that no one expected. The puppy urinated on Titan's fur. The gorilla's reaction would determine whether that miracle would continue or end in tragedy. Everyone held their breath. Titan looked at the wet spot, then at the puppy in his hands, and did something extraordinary. Titan smiled. It was not Roberto's imagination. The gorilla opened his mouth, showing his teeth in a genuine expression of joy, then gently licked the puppy's head as if to say that everything was fine. He cleaned the wet spot in his fur with dry leaves he had kept in the corner of the enclosure, demonstrating a surprising understanding of hygiene. 3 days passed. The puppy, now called Bolota by the staff, was gaining weight consistently. Titan created a meticulous routine, feeding every 2 hours, constant warming, cleaning after every bodily need. He slept in a seated position so as not to crush the baby that rested in a natural depression formed by the crossing of his legs. But on the morning of the 4th day, the real test arrived. Patricia received a call from the sanctuary's national board. The story had leaked to the press. Reporters were demanding access. Scientists were questioning the ethics of the experiment. And worst of all, the State Veterinary Council issued a direct order. "You have 24 hours to separate the puppy from the gorilla," Patricia announced at the emergency meeting. They allege risk of pathological dependence and possible psychological trauma for both animals. Camila felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. They don't understand. Bolota is only alive because of Titan. Separating them now would be an emotional death sentence. "We have no choice," Patricia replied, her voice breaking. "It's a court order." That night, Roberto entered Titan's enclosure to try to explain the impossible. He approached slowly, the transport cage in his hands. Titan realized immediately. His amber eyes fixed on the cage, then on Roberto, and then something changed in his expression. The gorilla retreated to the farthest corner, protecting Bolota with both hands cupped over his chest. "Titan, my friend, I need to," Roberto extended his hand, his voice choked. The gorilla shook his head. A clear, deliberate, unequivocal movement. "No." Then he did something that froze Roberto in place. Titan began to vocalize, a deep rhythmic sound that echoed through the concrete walls. It was not a threat. It was a plea. It was lamentation. It was the voice of a father begging them not to take his child. Roberto left the enclosure without the puppy. Camila found him sitting in the corridor, his face buried in his hands. "I couldn't," he confessed. "I looked into his eyes and saw a terrified father. How could I?" The news of the refusal spread. But something unexpected happened. Thousands of people around the world began sharing videos of Titan caring for Bolota. Online petitions gathered 200,000 signatures in 48 hours. Renowned primatologists sent letters defending the maintenance of the bond, arguing that forced separation would cause irreversible damage to both. Public pressure worked. The Veterinary Council backed down, but imposed conditions: gradual socialization of Bolota with other dogs, weekly behavioral evaluations, and preparation for eventual independence. Patricia accepted all the terms. Camila developed a revolutionary protocol. During the day, Balota spent 2 hours playing with other puppies in a supervised area, learning natural canine behaviors. The rest of the time, he stayed with Titan. The gorilla watched the socialization sessions through the glass, attentive like a father on his child's first day of school. 6 months later, Balota was a healthy 3-kilogram dachshund, sociable and well-balanced. He still slept leaning against Titan every night. The gorilla had taught the puppy something that no formal training could achieve: absolute emotional security. And Balota, in turn, taught Titan that family does not require shared DNA. Refugio das Montañas became a world reference center for interspecies bonds. Scientists visited monthly to study that impossible relationship that worked perfectly. Roberto wrote a book documenting every stage. Patricia secured funding to renovate the entire sanctuary. But the true lesson was not in the scientific studies or international recognition. It was every morning, when Titan woke up and the first thing he did was check whether Balota was breathing peacefully at his side. It was in the way the puppy ran back to the gorilla after playing with other dogs, jumping excitedly as if to say, "Dad, look what I learned." True love does not recognize species. It recognizes only hearts that choose to care. If this story touched you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what you felt.